on air.
Who's chairing?
Typically, it's Terrell.
Well, she better hurry up because we're on air. Do you want me to start?
If you, sure.
Okay, so I will call the Tree Advisory Committee meeting for March 12th to order. We have minutes to approve. People had a chance to look them over.
Yeah, I had a chance to look them over. Motion to approve?
Thank you.
I second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Yep, I should have asked any discussion.
Any discussion?
Otherwise, we will presume those are passed. There are nobody here for public appearances for non-agenda items. Do any of us have non-agenda items that we might like to bring up quick? Okay, then agenda review, any rearranging needed?
Nope.
Okay, then the agenda items. A is Earth Day, Arbor Day events.
And I did pass out the schedule. However, this is from Monday, and I don't know what to say about it because it may end up changing, and I'm not, I didn't really, I don't know. So, I mean, I guess maybe just keep the schedule handy, and if we end up.
So it's just a rough plan, in other words?
No, it's not a rough plan. These are all confirmed. We all have, everything's confirmed. It's just because of coronavirus, everything's getting canceled. So we've already had one school group call and cancel, and then the UW is supposed to be working with us on a few of these things, and they are not having classes after spring break. So I talked to Laura Jell this morning, and she's just not sure what was going on. She didn't want to cancel stuff because she wants to move ahead with these things, but she's just not sure she's going to have students or if she's going to be allowed to do things. It's all just kind of up in the air. So I don't know. You know, I mean, I really don't know what to say. And I don't know if the library's going to cancel their programs or what. I think we'll know more probably next week. You know, these dates later, the 24th and 25th, later in April, maybe we'll be safe for those. I just can't say. But, you know, at the Raptor program, we definitely have had more than 50 people at that thing. And that's kind of been sort of the cutoff. People are talking about canceling events, and I don't know what to say about it. Or if you just...
They've been using 50?
Basically, that's what I've sort of heard. I mean, like, it depends on who you talk to. I mean, again, everything is up in the air. So,
The governor was using, recommending 250.
yeah,
Should be, canceled 250.
or above, yeah. And then we'd be okay, but, you know, I just don't know how it's gonna all shake out.
Particularly like for the 17th, if the Fitchburg Library decides to shut down,
Exactly, and,
then that's obviously a no-go because that's at the library.
right, and with the librarian, you know, like, so, right, exactly. And then, like, you know, the 18th in Oak Meadow, my guess is that's probably gonna happen because that's a community event. We've been planning that with Oak Meadow since last fall. Everything's on order, everything's set to go, but if for some reason they decide not to do it, you know,
That would be their call rather
that's
than
almost their
ours.
call. It's almost their call. Like, I'm happy to show up and help them with it, do it, you know. And from my end, almost all the work is done except for putting the stakes in the ground and calling Digger's Hotline. But, so I'd like to see it happen, but then again, if they're not comfortable and they decide, hey, we want to wait, well, fine. All this stuff can wait, really. So it's not a huge deal. And then, you know, again, Dr. Laura Jell, when I talked to her today, she just said, you know, yesterday was when they first got notice that they weren't going to probably be having in-person instruction after spring break, and she wasn't sure what that meant, and da-da-da-da. So I don't, she's the UW Extension horticulture professor that's going to come and do an event here on the April 21st.
Does she have a class that
Yes, and
on
she was going to bring
campus?
her class. Yes, she does.
Oh.
It's her horticulture class meets this spring, and she was going to bring them to do tree planting that third week in April, which is that week of April 23rd. And so I don't know what, I
The
don't know.
professors I talked to got almost no notice more than the students, which was basically, we're not meeting in person, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, and that's what she told, that's exactly.
Which is not very specific for like a horticulture class where the meeting together is kind of the.
Oh, you're taking
The-
classes right now? aren't you?
I'm at the law
At this
school there.
yeah.
No, and that's exactly what she said. She said they just found out, and she doesn't have any specifics. So it's just sort of up in the air, you know? So I don't know what to say. I mean, I'd love to sit here and kind of organize who's gonna volunteer for what and kind of get those details hashed out, but it doesn't really seem worth it when we don't really know what's happening. My guess is by the time we get to April 25th, the Chicory Meadow thing, my guess is we're gonna be fine, but I don't know. So, but it, like, I don't know. It's just,
The
it's,
things that I'm seeing in terms of managing travel and other things seem to have a month timeframe, so it's like till
Mhm.
April 10th,
right.
at, at this point, so
Right.
most are kind of doing a 30-day. So
Well, and
this is
at that
all
point,
past that.
they might re-up at April 10th or
Right.
not, depending on.
Right, but I'm just saying,
But
It strikes me that it would be worth just, as much as we can, getting people down for some of these, because if they do cancel, then we just get that time back, but if they don't, then we're prepared.
Yeah. I mean, if you guys want to do that, that's fine. I know Linda in the past has helped with the library stuff. I'll ask her specifically about that program. And like I said, in Oak Meadow, I don't think we really need a lot of volunteers because that's one of their neighborhood events. It's gonna be a cool thing. I mean, if people want to come, I think it's gonna be really neat. It's a neat, we're planting like 20+ trees in that park, which will be kind of cool. And then we're announcing we got a donation to do a restoration in the natural area behind everyone's homes, that really steep hillside, to do site prep and do all native plants along on that hillside, which will be really cool. So it's kind of going to be a neat kickoff, but it's kind of really a very organic Oak Meadow / Capitol Heights thing. And if folks want to come, I mean, they'd be more than welcome. But I think they've kind of, between myself and the neighborhood associations, those two neighborhood associations, we've kind of got things covered.
I don't know quite where that is.
So Oak Meadow is off of Noble Drive. So if you go down Fish Hatch and take a right on Noble Drive, you hit basically the Capitol Heights condos. And Oak Meadow is a neighborhood that's just winds down Tarhee Street, I guess it is, from there. And it's like, Tarhee is the only street that comes to mind, but it's kind of a smaller neighborhood just off of Fish Hatch. Kind of, I guess, would be kind of north and east of.
between Lacey and Fishatry.
Yeah.
In there,
Right, yes.
where Rod lives.
So what
Well,
I'm thinking
Rod
particularly
Doesn't live there, but yeah.
is inviting alders to go.
Sure, yeah, if they want to go, that's fine.
But I was trying to decide which district it would be in.
And yeah, Jake lives there, but he's no longer on the council, but and he's the one that's kind of spearheading a lot of this.
So District 3, I think.
Yeah, I truly don't know what district it is.
Yeah,
Or
Rod lives a couple doors down from him.
No, he doesn't.
Did he move?
No, his daughter does. Rod lives next to Wildwood Park.
Okay, I've had that wrong for a long time.
But at any rate, so,
So just to be clear, it's behind on Targhee. Yeah, I know, my mom lives on Targhee.
yes, right, yes.
So just, yeah, it's the new,
And we did an event
and it's
there,
behind there,
yes.
behind all of the houses.
Well, we're gonna be planting the trees in the neighborhood park that's, off of
Oh,
Tarhee.
sure.
So we did one tree there, I think last year. It was really cold. I think it was or maybe it was 2 years ago. We did 1 or 2 trees there, and then that kind of got and thanks to Tree Advisory, that kind of got the ball rolling. It was, I think it was 2 years ago. I believe you were there, Rod was there, and a group from the neighborhood was there, and I believe we planted 2 trees there Earth Day. I think it was 2 years ago, and that kind of got the juices
Okay.
flowing, and now they're gonna finish kind of doing, basically doing a ring of trees between the sidewalk and the rest of the park, and a couple of, it's kind of a neat
Okay.
planting that we're gonna do, so it'll be cool. It'll be really cool and good for them for having the, initiative to really make it happen.
Mhm.
But at any rate, so yeah, and if alders wanna come, I mean, that's fine by me. Not that it's my say-so anyway, but, that I don't think would bother anybody.
It is a semi-public event.
Yeah.
At the very
Absolutely.
least.
Yeah, absolutely,
Mhm.
absolutely. And at any rate, the one thing I'm a little concerned about, I would like to get a lot of people to the library on April 21st for Dr. Laura Julk. She's going to talk about selecting appropriate landscape plants, particularly replacing your ash tree. But I'm not sure, I don't know, it's just,
Well, let's go with the presumption that all of them will happen.
okay.
and cut them out as needed.
Yeah, and then, and we
That's all.
can do that.
The 21st is the one that fits best with my schedule already, so I'm happy
Awesome.
to do that one.
You are the best.
Yeah, I'll be there too. I can make it.
Awesome. Now, are you guys on Nextdoor by chance?
I have the app and I've looked at it once or twice.
Because I think the
But
best
that's
way to advertise these things is Nextdoor.
Mhm.
I am shocked at what, I'm not on Nextdoor because I don't live in Fitchburg, but I am shocked at the kind of response we get. Like, for example, we needed volunteers to build a bird structure. A Fitchburg resident who's on Park Commission put that on Nextdoor, and then with a few days, she had people who said, oh yeah, we can do that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like, I'm sort of amazed at the results that people get. I mean, through the city, we'll advertise this on our social media. It'll probably be on our website, although I never really, that's sort of a different story. But if a Fitchburg resident could put this on Nextdoor, that would be I think that
Yeah,
would be the way
absolutely.
to let people know.
I will probably wait until closer to on that one, but
Yeah.
just in case we
And
find out any.
I can from up in my corner of the city, but I cannot reach all of Fitchburg from up there.
Oh, that's true. That's also where I'm at.
Localized?
I don't-
It's pretty local
It's
for
yours
neighborhood. Yeah.
and adjoining. And mine doesn't go past like Fish Hatchery, I don't think, to the east. So I can get the big Fitchburg group, which goes most of the way to Sain Road. So I can get much of
Yeah.
Fitchburg, but if someone is
think I'm in the same-
Fitchburg group,
Same problem as you.
that they could probably reach the entire city.
And apparently there's several Facebook groups for different Fitchburg neighborhoods, and, you know, obviously I'm not part of any of those because I don't live here, but if folks are and they want to put it on there, that would be great.
I can do next door for my part too of the city.
Where about are you at, or which group are you in?
I live right by McKee and Seminole, and
Okay.
across the street from like Barriques and,
Oh,
Are you in
Oh.
Pine Ridge?
no, Seminole Woods.
Oh,
Shoot.
okay.
Yeah, they're older condos that have been there for a long
I
time.
think that would be the big Fitchburg group.
Oh, so should I not do it? And,
No,
oh,
no.
okay, oh, okay. Oh,
You
that would be,
should.
okay.
Your reach would probably be more extensive than mine.
So what do people have in terms of suggestions on how to best advertise it with some
I can-
pizzazz?
I can send you some stuff.
Oh, okay.
Do you want, I'll just send you an email with kind of her bio and stuff like that.
Okay.
Do you mind if I do that?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Yeah, if you could include
I will
me
do that,
on
yes.
that as well.
Mhm.
And how do you think we should work the, in case it gets canceled, where should we have should we have a central place that
See,
you can check?
I
or-
don't know.
It's it's a month and a half away still, so if you post it on Nextdoor now, it's probably a little bit early anyway.
Yeah.
Maybe
Okay.
wait a couple weeks, or at least a week or two until
Yeah.
we have more clarity, and
That's true.
then at least if we post, there will be hopefully more information about if it gets canceled, what
Right.
we would do as a
Yeah.
fallback, so.
Will those programs also be on Notify Me?
I don't
The
know.
city's email list?
That's a good question. I don't know.
The appropriate person needs to plug it in.
Okay.
So if you would be the appropriate person and you don't know, then the answer is you need to find out if you
Yeah.
wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, part of our issue is the person who used to do all this, their job got eliminated. So we don't, so a lot of stuff doesn't happen, like our web updates and all that kind of stuff, it just doesn't like happen because we don't have a physical person to do it. But I can ask about that.
If you need somebody else to manage that type of thing, like the email updates, feel free to reach out to me and I can probably do I mean,
I don't
you'd
know
have
that-
to tell me what to post on
Post.
there, but,
Mhm.
or if I
For
can,
Notify
yeah.
Me, that's
It might be a
an
government
official
employee thing.
city thing, and they would limit access to employees.
Mm.
But I appreciate the offer.
Mm-hmm.
So should we check back? I guess this depends on Dr. Jall, so should
Yeah.
we check back with you?
Y-
In terms of advertising, should we check back with you?
Yeah, let's do
Like
that.
the first weekend, second week in April, or is that too soon?
You can, as soon as you hear something, you can shoot out a note to all of us.
Yeah,
okay,
that's what
that's a
I'll
good
do. Because like when I talked to her today, she's like, we have a meeting this afternoon. She wasn't, similar to what Craig said, she said, we didn't get a lot of warning. I'm not really sure what this is supposed to mean. She
Yeah.
wasn't really, she just didn't know. She just didn't know what was going on.
Right.
And since it's not a travel thing, that's a positive thing, but she wasn't sure, because I guess they're not really supposed to travel, but, and I don't know. So
Mhm.
it's just a lot of up in the air.
So, should we advertise, well, I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but there's two things.
Right,
So if she,
so the tree planting, that's mostly with her students, so it's not something, the public
So we
wanted to
don't
come, they
need-
could.
okay,
I thought it'd be kind of fun for you guys if you wanted to come.
yeah,
Do you know what I mean? Because the idea of that, if folks are interested, is, so she's gonna come and demonstrate to her students how to plant a tree. I think we all kind of know that, but then what we're gonna do, I'm kind of excited about this, I think it's kind of cool, is that I have ordered the same species of tree, a bare root, a ball and burlap, and a container.
Oh,
And
wow.
then we're gonna, yeah, exactly, and then we're gonna plant all three, and we've got a couple of different species that we're gonna do all three, how they come, and then she's gonna talk about how you prepare different holes and things to look out for, and all that kind of stuff, which I thought would be really kind of cool.
Yeah.
So I thought this group might be interested to come, and I really hope we get to do it. And then she thought, well, maybe that one we could just do later if we, you know what I mean? So I don't know, but.
Yeah,
then-
that time isn't necessarily set in stone.
Well, right, that's
How many students was she gonna have?
12. So.
If we wanted to promote it, we could promote it as a watch and learn opportunity.
Sure. And it's kind of neat to have a university professor come and,
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of a
Mhm.
neat,
it's awesome.
yeah, that's what I thought. So I was super excited about it. And then like when she was talking to me today, she's just like, these students might not even be here. She doesn't even know, you know what I mean? Like, so I'm like, great, well,
Well, then
Oh, yeah.
she can snag people that came to watch and learn and say, go to
well,
work.
that's,
How
and
many
what,
trees were gonna be planted?
9, 3 of each, three species, 3 different ones that we're gonna do at McKee Farms Park. And it was kind of gonna be an asher placement thing and a screening thing and blah, blah, blah. So I was kind of excited about it. But what I was suggested to her, and I don't know if this will work, is if we filmed it, maybe she could use that to teach her students. I don't know. So there's maybe some options there. I'm not really sure. But at any rate, I'm very excited about that. I really do hope it happens, but it's a little bit up in the air just because of
Mhm.
current situation. And the thing is, the semester ends not long after that, so we kind of lose our window.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? I'm not sure when semester ends, maybe Craig.
It's the 24th, I think, is the end of classes, and then after that is final period, so
Right.
maybe it's a little bit like 23rd or something, but
Yeah, so it's kind of come into
It's
that.
right at the end.
they're moving students out of the residential halls. I'll be really surprised if they come back to do classes in that short window between the 10th and the end of the semester. It just doesn't,
Make a lot of
it doesn't
sense.
make logistic sense, so I doubt they're gonna do that.
Right.
But I don't have any actual information on
Right,
that. That's
see-
just my instinct.
Exactly.
But they're going to continue teaching as much as possible
Yeah.
online.
So a remote
Right.
thing for this, if they
And
could
if
get
the
volunteers,
students
could be.
remain
yeah.
local.
Right, maybe they could, I don't know.
Mhm.
So it's, again, just kind of up in the air, and like I said, I talked to her today, but since the university announcing that they were gonna be not having in-person teaching just happened yesterday, and she had no information until yesterday, it's unfolding. So I guess the best thing to do with both the 21st and the 23rd event is we'll just be in touch
Yeah.
and kind of see how it shakes out once we know more, and we get a firm commitment either way, and then we can know how to tweak it or how to kind of make things work. I guess in the same thing for that Friday event, April 24th, Diane is great to bring her birds, she's not worried about that, it's just that, we often get a pretty big crowd for that, and I'm not
Mhm.
sure how that's gonna be handled, and
that-
maybe
that-
by the,
That'll be another stay in touch with the library.
yeah.
Mhm.
And if the library says it's a go, then
We'll go ahead, yeah. The presenter's great, so I
Mhm.
know that because I talked to her, so,
I'm certain the library will put out a official, like they're either going forward with events or
Mhm.
not well before
yeah,
right.
that one comes, so.
You would think, yeah, and then we'll kind of know.
yeah, we'll know well before.
And for that one, it's just kind of the typical thing. We help her bring the birds up from the parking garage, up the elevator, help her set everything up, because she has a lot of gear, bird boxes and
Mhm.
table with cloths and literature and things of that nature. So it's pretty easy to get people to help with that. So so anyway, I'm not super worried about it. And like I said, we do have a little bit of time, but
Mhm.
just something to keep on your radar. The one thing I was hoping to get a couple people for was that April 25th. It's the Chicory Meadows tree planting. The mayor's committed to coming. It's a 10 to noon thing, and that it's also an ash replacement situation, and
What?
ash replacement. We're replacing ash trees, and the neighborhood has raised the money for it. It's kind of a neat synergy. They've also raised a lot of money for ash replacement on their terraces, which is great. They're very excited, and we've had this plan since last, I think, November. So, so anyway, so I'm very excited about it. I think it'll be a great event. They're very engaged.
That might be a nice opportunity to invite Laura's students
Yeah,
to attend that as well,
sure.
for extra practice.
Yeah, and that's the one where we would bring some food and do the coffee and do that,
Mhm.
like that whole thing. So that's, I mean, it's kind of nice to have some folks to help handle some of those logistics.
And there is bullet point number 4.
Yeah, and I do, yeah, exactly. And I do have it, so, but it might change because my son has, you know, he's in 4-H, and this got scheduled relatively recently, that he has, one of his fair events got scheduled for that day basically at noon, so I potentially would have to leave early, but I think it may be canceled because all of 4-H stuff is getting canceled because it's, like, he was supposed to go to art camp this weekend, that got canceled. He was supposed to have, so anyway, I don't know what's going on.
More than a month from now, we don't have any idea
Yeah,
Mhm.
and that's,
what'll be happening.
exactly. So anyway, so I would have to, I mean, I'd be able to get there and get everything set up, but I have to truck him to, his 4-H thing potentially. So at any rate.
But if Laura and/or her students would be happy to help out with that, then you could feel a little better about not being able to be there.
For the whole thing, yeah.
Because you know someone with expertise will
Would be there, yeah, exactly. And I think that's kind of, I think that'll be a fun event. You know, we were gonna, so the next bullet point, like, yet to be scheduled, like, we were gonna get Eagle School involved with, you know, Chicory Meadows / also a different event in Gunflint, but they did,
Mhm.
I have been in contact with them, and they said, you know, we're just kind of on hold for the moment, so I don't know what's gonna happen with that.
Mhm.
And then Corey Hill did contact me just last night and said, hey, you've done Arbor Day events here for the last 3 or 4 years, how about another one? And I said, well, I don't know, we're getting kind of full schedule-wise, do we wanna just plan a bigger time next year, or do you wanna try and squeeze something small in? So I don't know what's
Come
gonna
and help
happen.
with another neighborhood's event this time.
That's kind of what I said. I'm like, we already have 2 relatively big events
Yeah.
planned,
Mhm.
and we've done a fair bit of work in Corey Hill. There is more to do. Maybe we plan a big event there again next year, and
Mhm.
include maybe even a bird structure, since we've kind of got this bird
Mhm.
structure thing kind of going. So, at any rate, long story longer, that's the Earth Day stuff. Very exciting. I just don't know what's going to happen in regard to, you know, what's going to happen in terms of people getting together, you know, and if how that's going to go.
I'm talking about bird structures. When we talk about doing that, let's talk about doing bat structures as well.
Well, that's true. So, not to get too far off topic, but there was someone who offered to do some more bat structures. But since our bat structures, I don't think, are occupied, I asked him, hey, could you potentially do a bat survey to let us know what kind of bats we have, so we know a little bit better how to build structures for them?
Right.
Because we don't.
They're very particular.
They are very. Yes.
Occupied.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. And I don't. And we have the exact same issue. So I'm like, you know, I'm not sure what kind of bats that we have here.
Mhm.
And if we've got I think most of those bat structures are geared towards cave bats. We may not have any more because of white nose. We may just have tree bats, and if that's the case, it's a different kind of structure
Mhm.
you need to put up for them. So, so I just suggest, if you don't, well, if you don't have dead trees that have loose bark, they would need a structure.
Yeah.
So
And
that's,
they want very small places
They
they can
do.
crawl up into.
exactly. So, which we could facilitate if we just knew what kind of
Right.
so exactly, that's a good point, but I think we need to survey first and figure out what we're gearing towards, because
There's probably a bat person in the community that we can just ask.
that's true. That's true. Maybe that's a question for next door. But when
Mm.
this Eagle Scout, you know, seriously, like so when this Eagle Scout came forward, I was like, well, you know, I'm not going to say no to bat structures. However, here's all the information how to do a bat survey. We could point you in a couple of different directions to do bat surveys. That might be more helpful to us if
Mhm.
you're interested in that. So we'll see how that shakes out. I don't know. Anyway, so that's kind of the long and the short of it. I do, I don't know, a lot of work's gone into these. I really hope that they happen. That's all I can say, I guess, but we'll just see. And I guess, so what is,
What do for the first one, the April 17th one, that one's pre-K, is that up in the air right now?
I guess so. I
Depends
mean,
They're all
on if
up
the
in the air,
library
yeah.
closes.
Oh, it's at the library?
It's at the
Oh,
library.
okay, yeah, right.
So I don't know. I mean, I
Mhm.
would guess not, but I can't, I mean, I don't, it's not really up to me necessarily, but, so today's the 12th. I'll probably try to touch base with folks maybe the last week in, like that, either the last week in March. Just by then, we should have a pretty solid idea, I would guess. That's 2 weeks from now.
I would also, at that time, make sure you know which of these still needs people, so
Right.
that you can include
Right.
that if
Mhm.
if the events are still on, because it looks like the 21st, we've got enough for, the 18th is just kind of
Hanging out there.
interesting, but
Yeah.
not necessary to get volunteers for, so then
Mhm.
still quite a few here, so if we do need more, make sure to include that in the email so
Yeah.
everybody knows.
Okay.
Re-
So, at any rate, that's that. I don't know what else to say about it, to be honest.
All right.
And it's unfolding.
Nothing
So-
else?
No, not really. So,
We understand.
yeah, at any rate, so, yeah, and thank you to those folks who are able to volunteer, and I will definitely be in touch with folks. Another exciting, next agenda item, which I find very exciting, is the World Tree City, credential. I don't know if we wanna go for it or not. We've got 3 out of 5. The 2 that we don't have, I think wouldn't be that difficult to get to.
I thought it would be.
It depends. I mean,
They don't have a complete inventory and have it for years.
no, we don't, but it wouldn't be that hard to get that if we wanted to. I mean, it would just be a matter of getting that job back and doing it. Do you know what I mean?
As everybody looks at me and I'm like, oh.
It was never complete. It was still never complete.
It was close.
Was it?
And part of the reason for that, as Jeremy knows, is because we were taking ash trees down and having to constantly update the ash replacements,
Oh, that's right, yeah.
which you helped us with, which was nice.
Mhm.
So, and I think now that we're kind of, I mean, we have a lot of ash trees still to take down, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. And also now I think there's the software is so much better to do that. The software they used in 2013 was kind of clunky and a little bit more difficult and took a lot more time. And now I think if we would get updated software, it'd be a lot easier. But anyway, or we could pay a contractor to do it. But that's just something, it would take some advocacy. It's not difficult. It's just a matter of having the money to do it.
In any case, number 1, done.
Yeah, so we've got 1 done. 2 would be the tree protection ordinance. I don't know if Craig wants to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I will, here, this is for Jim over there, and then you can pass this down to Terrell. Dorothy, did I see you already have one printed out? Not like you need to look through it here, but, yeah, I was, doing some research on tree ordinances to try and get a vague idea of what we're dealing with before this meeting. I started by looking at the other tree cities in the link that she sent out, and then trying to look for ones that are comparable-ish to Fitchburg. This city's a bit bigger, but it's 48,000, so it's a good estimate. The other ones I found, there was one that was a 4,000-person city, and that just seemed like,
That's a little too small.
yeah, it's not going to be a similar situation enough. And out of the ones that were close, there's quite a few in Florida that Florida, I think, probably has some different concerns than a more Midwest kind of Ohio-based. So this was the best example I found that I think would be a good template not template necessarily, but inspiration for ordinance here in Fitchburg. I think, the comprehensive plan, as well as just this goal for becoming a tree city, requires us to try and work towards a tree preservation ordinance, which is square in the wheelhouse of what this committee, I think, should be for.
Mhm.
And I think it would be appropriate for the city to have one.
Yeah, well, I know Anna doesn't want to necessarily do too much of the politics side, but there is this difficulty of there's no real way to stop people tearing down these old growths in their developments. There's no teeth to anything right now to prevent removal of trees that we would much rather keep and preserve. And sometimes people are coming in and tearing out old trees to plant new ones that are kind of the same type, which
It's gonna take 15 years.
yeah, to
reach
catch
the
up.
roof line.
It doesn't make any sense. So
lucky.
having some sort of ordinance in place, I think, is a good first step. Enforcing that and all of the complexities down the road are going to be a little bit more difficult, but at least.
I would like developers to design around trees,
Mhm.
valuable trees.
In this way, I think they'd have to put them on the site plans,
Right.
which I don't think they,
Exactly.
unless we specifically ask them, I
Mhm.
don't believe that they are required to at this moment.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I talked very briefly to Dorothy about this before this meeting, but she said she's happy to potentially sponsor an ordinance as long as we do some of the legwork ahead of time to draft it, which I mentioned in an email. I'm attending law school right now, so this is kind of right in my area of things that I should be thinking about, and so I'm happy to kind of kick off the process. I've already done some research into this, but one thing that I think would be helpful from, I don't want to just be on my own over here.
Sure, yeah.
From a committee level, I think what would be helpful is reviewing this ordinance that I passed out at some point and letting me know if there's anything big that you think they got wrong or that they missed, things that you think are particularly valuable from this. If you say this right here, this is probably the thing that matters most, that's also useful.
This is their current ordinance,
Yes.
and it dates back to like 98.
Yeah.
With revisions along the way, so I'm thinking they probably got a lot of the kinks out already, which is cool.
Much better than if, somebody were to come and try and get one from a 2018-19 ordinance, then they might still have quite a lot of the problems from it, so.
Well, before the meeting started, I told her that I have one friend that works in tree service, and I can ask them to take a look through it and see if there's anything glaring also
Yeah.
from their perspective.
Well, I like in here that it includes the public utilities. It puts them on the hook, which is kind of nice, which would be a new thing.
Yeah, I'm kind of new to
Yeah.
ordinances, but looking through it, looked like it was pretty comprehensive on the things that we would want to include. Like you said, the utilities in there.
Yeah. And then I like the tree survey aspect too, that you need a tree survey when you're doing development. I mean, that would be great, which we don't always have. And,
When you're considering buying a piece of land from someone, take a look at the trees
right,
and know what the ordinance says.
right. I mean, for example, the crossings, that condo, I mean, that was put on a pine plantation, huge pine trees, and they all want screening between them and McGaw Park. Well, it was there, and it got all taken down to put up their buildings. And now they want the city to put up trees, which I've tried to do, but there's A, not a lot of space, and B, to your point, I mean, we plant small trees. We don't plant, 60-foot white pine. So it's, I think people would be very supportive of it. Long story longer, but.
We need to help developers not see trees as obstacles to remove.
Right, yeah.
So I guess I don't have any real huge takeaways from this right now. The main thing, I think, is that I think this Tree Cities of the World program is a really great idea. I think that will reflect well on
think so, too.
Fitchburg and move us in the right direction. I also think that regardless of the Tree Cities, we should be pursuing the ordinance. Actually, I had been thinking about it after our last meeting, and then you sent out the Tree Cities thing, and it kind of dovetailed nicely. So I think, we're not going to be able to do the whole thing in a meeting here, but if anybody has any big thoughts or suggestions, I'm happy to hear them. Otherwise, probably the next step for me is to start just working on drafting in the structure of the existing Fitchburg ordinances.
Mhm.
One question I had for you, Dorothy, is that we do have kind of a tree removal ordinance that refers mostly to public trees on the books now. I don't have a good sense for whether it's better to try to amend that and have the structure be the same one as that, but just much more fleshed out, or if it's better to have a new amendment.
There's a lot of back and forth in making those decisions.
Okay.
And I'd probably involve the city attorney and
I would say
Mhm.
Valerie would-
everything else.
Yeah, she'd be a good one to talk to.
Mhm.
Because our current ordinance about like pest abatement and that kind of thing, it's a little outdated. I think it's probably reflects more of the Dutch elm era than it does now, which was in the late 70s, early 80s, or
Mhm.
and I'm not sure the date of that ordinance, but it's that time. When I read it, that's what it kind of reminds me of.
Mhm.
And maybe that's me jumping the gun a little bit. Maybe it's better just to work on what we want in the ordinance and then decide with the city's attorney and other alder folk what the best implementation plan is. And,
Yeah, I think likely I don't know if they'd get shuffled together because one is specifically talking about city responsibility for city trees,
mhm.
and the other is talking about public trees.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
they might not,
I think
or
they're separate.
private
Yeah.
trees.
I think
And
they're
that's,
separate.
Mhm.
I would guess. I don't know.
easier, I think. So
Yeah.
if it's better to keep them
So it
separate, I'm
might-
happy.
Might be just adding a new
so.
section below
Yeah.
or something on that order.
Yeah. No, I think you're probably right.
Okay.
Thank you for all your work on this.
Yeah,
Mhm.
no problem. Like I
And
said,
one-
it's
One thing I'd like to
Using my
ask you to
interest.
do when you post minutes, can you add this document to the minutes?
Sure, I can. Yeah.
I can send it in digital form so
Okay.
that you don't have to
Mhm.
scan it or anything. I've got
If there's other people that watch the tree committee or tree board.
if there
and-
are,
and
hello,
would like
it's
to
nice
find
to
it.
see you. We like to have you here.
Because I could
Mhm.
even put the link in the minutes, right?
I believe so.
Yeah, I think I can.
Yeah, I don't get to play in that system, so you might have to ask the front desk
You're
for any
s-
particulars.
You're missing out.
Not
Oh, my.
much. I've done a lot of responsibility for not breaking things online. I know how to break things online. I've learned how not to.
Yeah.
Special balancing of skills.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And we would, I mean, and to be honest, like, I think one of the things in terms of implementation, we would need more hours in forestry to actually make this happen. We can't do it with existing resources, and that's something that I think, just going in eyes wide open, that we'd have to tell council, like, you don't get all this for 24 hours a week, one job.
Mhm.
It just doesn't happen.
Well, we're committed to adding a new city inspector first, I think.
Okay, for a building inspection?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, which makes sense.
Well, it's still one guy to do all the old stuff and all the new stuff.
It's insane.
Mm-hmm.
It's insane.
It truly is.
I mean,
But when money dries up and they say, choose between the gotta-haves, that's what budget is all about.
absolutely.
As much as I hate it, that's what it is. So, okay, so we know we got number 2. Number 3, know what you have.
And that, I mean, that would be, if we wanted to pay, to have that done by a contractor, it would be about probably $12,000, which isn't like crazy. Cause we have pretty good bones. It's just a matter of updating some of the information from ash to whatever the new tree is. Or when they did it in 2013, I think I'm not sure why they did this, but they didn't, put the species in. The tree species. So it's like, there's a tree there, but you don't know what it is if you're,
Oh,
whatever.
That seems like a key part of the inventory.
It does,
Were
right,
they
it does.
just looking at aerial maps?
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. I mean, I thought it was Dana, but I truly don't know. I thought it was Dana, and she can identify trees, but I truly don't know.
Were they on the ground, or were
I
they
don't know.
looking at from above?
And maybe they
Would be
were.
the question.
See, and I don't know.
Yeah.
But at any
Mhm.
rate, I mean, we have a lot of good data to work, that a contractor could work with, or a staff person. It wouldn't be, I mean, it wouldn't, especially with all the programs we have now, it wouldn't be that hard. And it would be very helpful to have an updated inventory.
Now, the updated part of this for, so maybe 12,000 to get the inventory once, would that require upkeep to,
Yeah.
like, what is, do you know if there's a specific, like, it needs to be updated every 3 years for
Right.
the tree cities of the world, or just needs to be constantly kept up to date, or?
I'm sure they mean up to date at that. I mean, they want it pretty accurate at the time you're applying.
Okay,
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so for us, we'd have to add our new developments in every year, and anything we took out and anything we put in. I mean, once you get going, it's not that hard
yeah,
if you've got it.
not terribly difficult to
Mhm.
Right.
maintain.
And if you have decent software, it's not too
Okay,
difficult. And it would be nice if we had that, because then the engineers could use it, you know,
Mhm.
other people could use it, you know, because right now it's a little tough it's a little clunky and it's a little hard, but at any rate. Well, like when they're, for example, when water utilities planning on where they're gonna do water lines, or like Bill and his, the transportation guys, like, okay, what trees are there along, this road corridor that's gonna get reconstructed? What are we talking
Mhm.
about impact-wise? Like, it's hard for them to pull that information out.
Mhm.
So it would be nice to be able to have that just as a,
They're
set
doing
thing.
nice things with the oak trees outside of the fish hatchery, rather than
yes,
buying right away and
yes.
talking about they're going to drill some groundwater wells to monitor things
Yes,
in and around the oak trees as it relates to the construction,
yeah,
which is kind of cool.
it is cool,
Mhm.
yeah,
A lot less invasive.
yes, yes. So, at any rate, yeah, so I guess just to wrap up, I think this is completely attainable, but it just takes some advocacy and some, work from folks to make it happen that aren't me, you know, because I can't really advocate for any of this stuff.
one thing that, I've been, small advocacy thing that I kind of recommend for committee members that's useful is, I've met both of the people who are running for this Alder seat, this time around, and asked them about their feelings on tree preservation and that type of thing, just as a kind of, before I vote,
Sure.
know how I feel about them, but also get them at least thinking about it, because eventually
That's
Mhm.
great.
they'll be represented. So that's just a suggestion for the
Mhm.
other committee members, that it's a pretty easy way to start with the advocacy. Definitely not the end, but.
Mhm.
No, I did not do that last year when Dorothy was running with Dorothy, because I kind of assumed she supports the tree preservation. I would hope.
So, at any rate, I mean, I think it's,
And those positions are decided in April, right?
Mhm.
Yep. Same time as the primary,
Mhm.
which will make it a much higher turnout than last year's, I would guess, just
you would,
based on the
you would think.
high-profile primary situation.
Mhm.
But
We may not
guess-
have
I guess by then it might not be much of a decision, yeah.
I was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the way that they tier that, because by the time it gets to Wisconsin, you have maybe 2 choices, and that's if
Mhm.
you're
We
lucky.
have one president.
Yeah, exactly, and could very well be no choice.
Wow.
In 16, it made a difference.
Yeah, I mean, it does sometimes, but I would prefer it all on one day, because then it would
Mhm.
feel better.
50 states one day.
Well,
Like
that's how
the
they do
general.
presidential elections.
Mhm.
I just have a question about the tree preservation process. Would the bulk of the opposition likely come from developers? Or Or what's a good way to
That-
work,
that-
what's a good way to work, to reach out to them?
That,
'Cause-
that might depend on the developer, because there are developers that are a lot more conscious of those kind of issues, and there are developers who don't, they want a bare flat, and that's their starting point, period.
Are there developers of the first type in,
Yes.
okay.
Well, it's a fact that trees add value. I mean, that's just a
Mhm.
fact. So, and
If-
it's
if-
pretty indisputable.
If you can put up a neighborhood that has trees above the roof line,
Yeah,
it's a far more valuable neighborhood.
It's kind of
And we
baffling that it needs an ordinance to then convince people of that, but,
Mhm.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
difficult to work around.
yeah, it does
trees.
take effort. yeah.
It takes a lot of
Mhm.
effort and it's expensive.
Mhm.
You know, it is expensive. I mean, it does take a lot of effort and it isn't something that you just say you're gonna do. You actually have to do it and you actually have to, it does take a lot of effort.
Mhm.
One thing that it looks like they did in this one that we might not want to start out with, but is they added a section where the applicability
I see that,
B2,
yeah.
where they said it doesn't apply to anything that's already approved by the city, which I'm not sure is the best way to start out, because I have no concept of how much that would be excluding from applicability and how much we would want to try to get stuff that might have approval in. But it seems like that might be a way to take out a lot of discontent, because then it's
Mhm.
only future plans
Right.
that are affected,
Mhm.
and the people who are currently doing stuff aren't gonna be mad at you for changing the plan.
Yeah,
so.
no, that would clearly be in it, because there will be some projects
Yeah, a whole bunch that's,
in motion,
yeah,
and they're gonna say, well,
too late, yeah.
mhm.
We're already set.
So it can only apply to future projects.
Yeah, they can't turn the ship that fast.
Which I
Right.
think though would be beneficial for convincing people that it's a good plan, just
Mhm.
because then you're not gonna get nearly as many people who are
Mhm.
mad because they aren't developing yet, so.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
what would be the smallest unit of development that it would apply to? Like a new house being put up, just one individual house, or?
I'm not sure that I know how they did it here, but
Well-
I think that's,
Well,
That's to be determined,
Let's
huh?
use the explosion house on the corner.
Oh.
They
Yeah.
didn't take that, down that big oak tree on the,
No, they
on the
didn't.
corner.
I was kind of watching for that too.
Mhm.
Is
what makes
oak
it an
or,
explosion house? Did I miss something?
I think the one right on the
Yeah.
corner is
It
a big
is?
oak, I think.
I'll have to look at it again.
What do you call it, all those little tiny leaves.
Honey
I'm
locust?
blanking. Huh?
Honey
Locust?
locust? It might be a honey
I think it's
locust.
locust.
I need to look at it again,
But
but
anyway,
I've been
yeah, I
looking.
was looking at that too, I was like, oh.
Well, I was just surprised how well all those trees did around there, considering 2 houses were obliterated.
Mm-hmm.
There was even an ash tree that one of the residents has really been not happy about that did fine. I'm like, see, it was okay. But at any rate, it was it was just kind of interesting that
All the stuff hanging out of the trees that day.
that was insane.
Bizarre.
It was insane. So, at any rate,
And then
Um,
we've got a lot up on Seminole Highway and Sentinel Pass that was nothing but trees, and
A lot.
a lot on the corner right there.
and is that gonna get built, or what is the deal there?
My question is, can it be built?
Well, it's so wet, isn't it? Super wet, or am I just
Where
thinking?
is this?
Seminole Highway north of Dunn's Marsh, where the traffic lights are now, at Sentinel Pass.
I noticed they
It
took,
was a big wooded corner,
Oh,
and now
yeah.
they've been taking trees
Yeah,
out.
well, that's right, I saw that. I was
Mhm.
like, oh, what's this about?
Because they're paying a couple $1,000s a year in taxes, and I think they would like to do more with that than pay taxes on
yeah,
a woodlot.
right, yeah. And was there a for sale sign up or not?
Yes,
That's what I thought,
but
yeah.
that's been there like for years.
Okay,
So now they're getting more serious about it and investing in taking trees out.
yeah.
The
But-
owners, in terms of that are trying to
Well,
sell it, they're trying to
it's,
prepare.
it's the old owner's family, apparently. So the people that had owned it, apparently someone died, and it's the inheritors that are trying to sell it now.
But to your question, Jeremy, I think it would depend upon if it's in the urban service area or if it's outside the urban service area. Because outside the urban service area, in order to build a house that is on anything that's considered wooded, you have to submit a forest management plan. So I think that that would be covered, that kind of what we're trying to cover in, with this ordinance would be covered with that, but that doesn't apply if you're in the urban service area.
All right.
Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So I think it would, if you're in the urban service area, that's where this would apply. So if you were building on a lot in the urban service area, even if it's in one house, this would probably come into play if we read it that way. Whereas if you're outside the urban service area, I think you would let just the rural residential criteria, development criteria, take over. I would guess. I don't know.
Even for stuff like that, they have to end up doing a survey.
Right,
So we're saying, put trees on the survey
right, which
Yeah.
would be so
and fill
helpful.
out this extra form.
Because I'm not sure when people are looking at plans, if the trees aren't on there, they don't even know that they exist. So they don't even, you know what I mean? Like, so it's, which happens. So, at any rate, well, thank you for doing this. I guess next steps would be talking to Valerie. Do you think, Dorothy, or?
Well, that for sure, if we want to start working on tree preservation, whether we're going to have the resources to give it teeth or not.
Okay. So that would be, I guess, the next step,
And she is,
the city attorney.
The new Mark Sewell. New-ish.
She's been here for 3 years, but yeah. I think 3 years, something like that. Anyway,
I'd certainly touch base with her and ask her if it's something that we should start working on diligently.
yeah,
It strikes me that it's kind of a chicken and egg situation. Like, we
Mhm.
won't get support for the additional funding for it without a good plan, which we need the support for the funding to make the plan.
Mhm.
But,
Yeah.
if we don't start, if we don't move forward with talking to Valerie until we get a funding plan,
Mhm.
it seems to me like we just
won't move
won't
forward.
move forward.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Which is.
But to have an ordinance on the books that developers have to pay attention to
Mhm.
doesn't necessarily take a lot of extra resources.
Yeah, and that's, I think, maybe that's moving forward with the trees city, but also the ordinance with the knowledge that the funding for the tree city is gonna be
Right.
a lot
Mhm.
tougher.
Yeah,
I think-
once you dig into the rest of these, that's where greater need
Yeah.
for resources comes in.
I think the pivotal piece will be this issuance of a tree removal permit. In this ordinance, it says that you can't remove a tree unless you get a permit from the planning director. And just depending on who that would be in the city and if they would have time to even look into this stuff, I mean, that's where the teeth would be or wouldn't be. Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
So I think that's kind of the pivotal
It's
point.
gonna take effort too for the owner,
Mhm.
Right,
so.
right. And if it's,
I was looking at it, I was like, oh, I don't know about this.
because if there's,
Well,
if there's
And
10
that's
tree
the-
removal permits that like sit, let's say, on my desk and I can't get to them because I don't only work 3 days a week and there's other things I have to
Mhm.
do, blah, 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 I mean, that's gonna be a big issue. But, so that, I don't know, but to your point, I think we could definitely work through that and it's worth, I think, starting to kind of get the wheels turning.
Mhm.
when there is, I think what Dorothy's saying, like, even if it's just on the books, that's better possibly than on the books and perfectly enforced. We might have some people who don't follow every rule when they remove a tree on their private property,
Mhm.
and maybe they don't get in trouble for it right away.
What do
Like-
you mean not every dog is licensed?
Right, that's a good example, right.
But having the thing in place still means that it could be enforced if we
Right.
got the resources, and also that
Mhm.
developers coming in will know it's there, so.
We would still have a lot of apologize later people.
Yeah, right,
Well, and that's,
right.
I
But that-
recently accidentally built a shed that was a bit too large for the needing a permit, so I'm one of those apologize, ask for forgiveness, not permission, so
Yeah,
gotta get my permit on that.
yeah, easy to do.
Yeah.
easy to do.
Mm-hmm.
At any rate, well, thank you for your work on this, I really appreciate it, and I guess maybe, you know, our next meeting's in May, I don't know if you have time, it's May, let's see, whoops, it's May, I just had it up here.
Is that down to
Uh,
announcements?
Do we
Well,
wanna, yeah.
I was just gonna say, it's, okay, so it's May 12th, I don't know if you have time to talk to her before then, or if it's something that you wanna just keep us filled on via email, or kind of what your thoughts are, so, or it's,
And we could all kind of read it.
Who's gonna talk to her?
and get some thoughts and discuss it at the next
I
meeting.
don't,
Yeah.
I'm not clear on that.
April 9th
are-
is our next meeting.
April, what?
Do you think,
April 9th.
Oh,
that's
sorry,
something that
sorry,
would
I'm on the
would be
wrong-
best to set up a
Yes,
meeting with
here we go.
multiple
Where
people,
am
or
I
just
here?
for me to reach out? I'm not, I've never met Valerie, so so I'm not sure.
Right,
I would say you could probably
April.
reach out and let her know there's a discussion in the tree board about this, and you needed her input.
Okay. What is her?
oh,
last
yeah,
name?
it is April 9th, I just wasn't
April
scrolling.
9th, not May 12th.
What is it?
Mm-mm.
April 9th. Why is that date sticking in my brain?
And that's,
Is
I mean, that's not that much time between now and then, so there might not be a lot of time to talk to her, I don't know, but,
Yeah, I don't have any sense of how busy she is, but.
What do we want to find out?
Well, I think getting some just general process tips would be good if she thinks it's. I don't quite know the process for this.
Do you want her feedback on content or more about the process?
I think early process feedback, because there's no way that I will get content feedback from her by April 9th, because I won't have enough content to get feedback on.
and she's super
So-
busy and you're super busy.
Well,
so-
you can also just show her this and say, we're wanting to pattern something after this, and we need to know, from her perspective, what we should know about moving forward with an ordinance.
Yeah, I think that's probably the right thing, and it doesn't have to be a super formal thing. I'll just reach out to her and try and get some high-level feedback and thoughts on the process. So.
No, that'd be great, and she's been looped in on at least two that I know of, two tree kind of conflict issues that she's had to sort of help resolve, so she's kind of aware of some things that
So
happen.
she might welcome this
She might,
as a way to say, well, this is what we have on the books.
exactly, because right now it's sort of like, well, it's kind of,
Yeah, it's unclear.
it's
Right.
not real clear, and our ordinance that we do have, I think dates back probably from Dutch Elm, and it's pretty,
Mhm.
to me at least, it's pretty outdated and hard to, and it falls on building inspection. So it's a little wonky.
Mhm.
But-
And building inspection isn't necessarily tree experts, okay?
No,
Mhm.
they try, but no, yeah.
So we ready to move on to report from department then?
Sure,
Does 6-inch diameter make sense to you as the
I don't know.
starting area?
probably not, but we'd have to
Seems
kind of talk,
awfully small.
yeah, we'd have to talk about that.
Yeah, okay. 'Cause I was thinking it was like.
Well, and that's the exact kind of feedback that I'd like from the
Mhm.
committee. If everybody
Yeah.
can read through and kind of take notes and say like, well, that seems too small for Fitchburg, at least for a starting ordinance, maybe in 30 years, 6 inches is the perfect number, but
What about
not,
with
'cause
oaks, though?
Well, see, it depends a little bit on species. I know, I think it's a Village of Fox Point has they don't call it tree preservation ordinance, they call it specimen tree ordinance or something like that, and they designate specimen trees at different DBHs as being preserved, and
Based
so.
on different species and stuff, yeah.
Mhm.
And I think that makes a lot of sense
Especially
for
certain
here,
ones.
because,
Mhm.
an invasive species of tree, we probably don't have the
Black-
same concern about, yeah.
Years.
Yeah, black locust,
Been around, don't
Yeah.
worry.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So,
it might be- that might be
that's-
good
this
if
is-
you have that-
this is
yeah,
definitely
that
inspiration, not a direct copy-paste job.
Right,
So,
yeah.
I will be more than
It's kinda
happy to
nice.
get
It
lots
looks
of.
like it's well written, it looks like
It-
it's thorough and kind of precise.
Yeah, I think it's designed well, so.
Thank you for finding it. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's-
it's a
well,
good, it's a good starting
Your
point.
Tree City thing was what led me to it,
Oh,
so
good,
it wasn't
okay.
too bad.
Perfect, good.
All right.
So, report from departments. So we're planting 251 trees this spring. The whole thing together, put it out to bid. McKay's was the lowest bidder. So we'll be working with McKay's Nursery this year, which I'm very excited about. They have bid every year since I've been here, and they haven't quite ever got the bid, but this year they did, so I'm very excited about that. And we're doing, we're not doing anything brand new, but we, in terms of tree species, but we are doing a lot of interesting smaller canopy trees because we are doing a lot of smart code this spring, and it's going to be really interesting to see how it shakes out. That's part of the reason why I think McKay's got the bid, because they're one of the only nurseries that has some of those trees, that has some of those species.
Oh, the specific kind.
Yeah, so we'll see, and we're doing a lot of fastigiate upright growth trees, so it's going to be interesting. I don't know what to say, but it's definitely going to be interesting. And by you, we're doing Renaissance on the Park this spring, so that'll be interesting. And we're doing we're replacing as many ash as we can, and hopefully we'll get caught up with that. We'll see.
Do you think right now you have the resources to get caught up on that, or are you anticipating still being a little bit short?
It depends on how many trees we end up having to take down.
Okay.
So I started doing ash survey this, late winter, early spring is when we survey our ash to see if they're worth treating. And looks like we have a lot of emerald ash borer damage that I wasn't expecting. So we'll see how that all shakes out. And some of those trees we've been treating. So
And they still got quite a bit of damage.
it's
Just from, what are you seeing?
bark splits, bark breaking apart, dead branches. It'll be interesting to see what they look like when they're supposed to be leafing out. And I don't know if that's the mild winter or we did miss a year of treatment because of budget, so that's part of it.
It's every 2 years, not every 3 years.
Right. Well, right, that's the thing. And when we didn't have the money, there was nothing we could really do. So, so at any rate, so we'll see kind of how it shakes out. So to answer
Okay.
your question, I'm hoping to get caught up, but we might get caught up and then just kind of get behind again. But we're really working to try and to mitigate that and keep caught up. And we don't really just do like take an ash out, put a different thing in. We really look at the whole landscape, try to make things match up a little bit, try to kind of look at what's there and do a little bit more thoughtful design work. So, so that's helpful too. And we're doing a lot of new developments this spring, a lot, I think 5, right? 5-ish. So it'll be interesting to see how they all shake out. And the smart code thing is interesting, and it'll be interesting to see how we continue to work with that. Anyway, that's.
And what is that meaning, this smart code?
It's a different, I don't know, do you want to describe it or?
It's a zoning code where there's a large parcel of land and you don't divide it up into individual parcels. You plan it out in a smarter way. Phil Sviem is doing it up in the northeast neighborhood. The apartments on Sain Road were all done under smart code. One of the reasons developers like it is because as long as a project fits smart code, approvals are all done upstairs and they do not run through the committee process.
Oh,
I don't necessarily like that because I don't like seeing apartment buildings go up and I know nothing about them. That's kind of spooky.
And that,
But the idea is you have the rural farmland and then you have kind of a step-up progression of building types and things so that you're not putting factories next to single-family homes and things like that. So it's developing patterns of development that makes a lot more sense than a lot of the traditional.
and how it affects the trees is the tree spacing is a 30-foot spacing. Typically, we have a 40-foot spacing, so it puts things. It puts so it puts things smaller, and it's since it's compacted, the building, everything is in a smaller space. So you have to use some of those upright species of trees. So we have a lot of species, or cultivars really, of trees that you don't see anywhere else in the city, but you'll see, like if you go down No Oaks Drive, it looks different because the trees are much closer together and they have a different kind of a growth pattern.
Where's that?
No Oaks, down here off of
Right.
Lacey, I guess it is. Lacey and Sain, basically, where Lacey and Sain come together. That's all smart code, and we're planting the last 3 trees there this spring. That'll be completely done, tree planting wise.
Cheryl Parkway in Sunny.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, okay, sorry, yes, not Lacey, yes, that's.
What's the name of the road again?
The road is No Oaks, is that Riva, is the apartment buildings?
N-O-E? N-O?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just
And
N-O.
just No Oaks.
Oh,
No
no,
Oaks.
really?
Yes,
I was like, change the name of that.
And we did plant a lot of oaks in there.
And if there are oaks in there?
I planted a lot of oaks in there. So there's a lot of oaks in there. Lots of different species of oaks are represented. But so whatever. So that's just an example of smart code, and you'll see that it's just a little bit closer, and then that terrace has a lot of.
I love those trees.
Yeah, right. The thing is.
No,
that-
I love the fastigiate
Yes,
oaks.
they're beautiful.
Awesome.
But on our end, it's a little bit of a different maintenance concern, and it has, has to be some training on, you don't clearance prune these trees, because that's not how they grow. So at any rate, it just requires a lot more thought, I think, is the idea, but if you don't think it out, it doesn't work out that great. So whatever, that's fine.
How did the pruning go this winter?
I think okay. I mean, it's mostly a clearance prune. We don't have arborists on staff except for me. So arborists. No one who does the actual work is an arborist. So it's okay. I mean, I don't know what else to say about it. It's and they're mostly doing clearance pruning for garbage trucks and snowplows and site distances and things of that nature.
We already know coming up, we're going to make people not happy on Seminole Highway,
With the
immediately north of
Construction.
McKee with the construction, because we're widening Seminole Highway to lengthen turn lanes. So we want more width, and the way we're getting width is moving away from the Stark Realty and the condos behind that. That line is staying where it is, and the width is going to the east, and that's going to take out, it's not necessarily good trees, it's screening
Yeah, it's
for
black locust
the
for the most
neighbors
part.
on
Yeah.
the other side.
And they don't have a lot of room to plant anything on their side, and the
Mhm.
stormwater pond is getting redone too, so,
And that's going to be bigger.
yeah, right. So there'll be even less space there, yeah. But at any rate, so, I guess announcements, our next meeting is in theory in that second week in April, where we can finalize things potentially. I just had it, what is wrong with my?
It is raining.
It is raining. It's the 9th is our next meeting,
Mhm.
according to my calendar. So, and then we can, I guess, maybe confirm some of the Earth Month stuff then. Seems a little last minute, but,
Hopefully we'll have an update
right.
generally before then, and if
Yeah.
not, then
We should have an idea of if we're
if there's no update by then I guess we just plan for it.
Right, then we just go berserk, right,
So,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
canceling everything these days.
Yeah, so, which is, interesting, so,
Any other announcements?
not really. I mean, there's a lot going on, but, I-
You wanted to see
Sand
yeah, yeah,
You know, like all my blue spruce just look like crap. It looks like just the last year of needles are on,
Yeah.
maybe 2 years. How long do the needles live?
well,
Healthy.
on a healthy one, I mean, they might cycle every couple of years, but you're not gonna notice that.
So they do sprout out.
They-
They do
some
get
of-
new ones.
Yeah, they do, but they won't, because what your spruce trees probably have is Rhizosphaera needlecast, and they're not gonna come back where that fungus has killed the cells. So it's sort of, they're just not a good tree. They're not a good tree for
Big old
Wisconsin.
one that if we had this ordinance, you'd be pointing at my tree saying, "Hey, lady."
Yeah, right. I mean, it's too humid here for them. They're meant for farther west, higher altitude, less humidity. And the last 2 years has been so wet, they've just been, it's not pretty. But anyway,
I need to turn my tree into a big totem pole or something. Just
that'd be,
cut off all the branches and do something creative with.
Could look
it-
pretty good.
It's that big
Yeah.
around.
Oh, really?
Jeez.
wow, wow,
It's huge.
wow, that's great.
It was full size when I bought the house 20 years ago.
Wow,
Now
that's
it's
great.
fuller size.
That's
Mhm.
awesome.
It's amazing it made it so long.
There's one side of it that's still good. So the one branch that's on that side went, and that's about that kind of diameter on that one branch that's just going crazy.
That's awesome.
All right, if nobody has any other business things, I'll let our movie TV guy out and motion to adjourn.
I'll move it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.